leadership, this isn't manipulation. So I hope you understand this based on the definition. All right, so I want to quickly move over there to another key point. You want to view leadership not as an act or set of acts, you want to see it as a process. It's very important because many times there's a pinnacle thinking in the minds of people once it comes to the subject of leadership or anything that has to do with it. Because the name leader sounds like lead. It always sounds like something that, I haven't finished all my accomplishments in life. There's only one remaining. I've not become a chief from my hometown. So to pinnacle the experience, he says he's now a chief. He has crowned it all. You see that thinking. I don't think that thinking is, I'm coming to Africa just briefly, and I'll now begin to weave it within the context I want it to be in. But I refuse to associate non-progressive thinking with the African continent. And I want to say this because this means that there are certain jokes I refuse to laugh at concerning Nigerians anymore. It's a certain Nigeria, it's not a certain Nigeria, it's from somewhere else. It's from somewhere else. Because at some point, we have to let go of certain things that may historically be our tradition. For us to pick new traditions for the sake of a glorious future. For the sake of this continent. For the sake of our people. For the sake of our children. We have to reject certain things that are historically traditional. And, what I'm saying is there's an air around leadership that kind of brings it to that point. It's called pinnacle thinking, where it's like, finally he's now the leader. Finally he's now the leader. But you have to look at this thing as a journey. You have to look at it as a journey of engagement and a journey of enrichment. Something that you practice, you increase. You practice, you increase. And there's always a new terrain that will test your practice. And it's not very, very difficult to understand. You will have a new company. You may have been successful in someone else's company, but you will start up. That movement from being successful as an entrepreneur to starting out life as an entrepreneur is a new kind of engagement that will show you different approach to leadership. Does that make sense to you? You're a peak performer in a bank or a peak performer in a private, in a particular institution. And then if you're a lady, for example, then what happens is you now have children or you start out a family. You'll be surprised how leadership is interpreted once it comes to raising a family. You might be experiencing peak performance in one area as a marketer, as whatever, but now you now have to bring out that same peak performance as a mother. And each of these opportunities will test what you know about leadership. And part of what we are going to accomplish here is basically give much more of an integrated approach that allows you, like what the name of the conference is, the Black Belt Manager. I like to look at it much more like what you have in Batman's belt. You have so many things to bring out, so many things to use. So the more important than techniques around here is approach, the way to look at the subject, right? And I want you to see it as something to integrate and something to grow with. And finally, so we can move on from here, let's take a look at that statement I was making. I think I've said it, but I want to give a cap to it. Leadership is not just influence, yet it involves influencing others through the leadership, right? While between the leader and the follower, the influence is mutual. Together, they influence the environment around them in some way. Now, so bottom line, when you look at all of these processes, what you are saying is that we may have to stop saying leadership is influence, right? We should instead say it more like it involves influence. And at every point, there will be influence going on. There will be someone. When Williams was standing there, he was influencing. I'm standing here, I'm influencing. But interestingly, you also are influencing. Your body movement is influencing what I'm saying. The way people sit can tell whether they are listening. It will give you a feedback mechanism, whether you should talk this way, you should stand up more, you should round up and close this thing. you get what I'm saying. So there's an ongoing conversation of influence as we are talking here. And so people that have the idea many times that they're the ones in charge should always check. There were two stories I would again borrow from the Christian Bible to show this. You find the story of Saul, the first king of Israel, and you find the story of David, some chosen king of Israel. You find the two of them exemplified these same leadership issues. Well, for Saul shows you that influence was so powerful that his people made him do all that he was doing. In fact, if Saul's leadership was challenged because he was influenced most times more by the people than by himself. So every time the prophet Samuel showed up, Saul always had something to say. The people made me do this. The people made me do this. The people made me do this. Now, of course, this may sound very religious, but we should think they were a society as well. They were a primitive society, so they are a picture of things that exist even now. It tells you that there are governments that exist that are not able to make any forward. It doesn't matter what their intentions are, because they are primarily driven by what will the people say. The people made me do this. Can still be and is still a phenomenon that is ongoing. The people made me do this. Can be why a president will finish and then he may not be able to attach anything to his tenure. His belief may be that he will change Nigeria, but the question is what's the influence of his people, the people that surround him. And if they are different from his goal, the people will make you do something. I wasn't talking of the president of Nigeria, by the way. I was basically giving, remember where I started from? I was just giving different approaches to what we're saying. So let's take a quick run. All right. So that we are on time, let me quickly throw something across to you. There is actually a challenge. The African context, leadership, and the African context. This challenge I'm going to speak about, I will first of all throw it to you, and then in closing what I have with me, I will bring it back with some answers. But I tell you something. Statistics-wise and common knowledge, this is both urban knowledge, common knowledge, it's every knowledge. We know that the resource basket of this world is Africa. What that means is that if there's anything anybody's looking for that you will use to make something happen, Africa is the first continent. Asia is not as embedded as Africa. So you want to pace it from agriculture to oil to what people have in fragments, we have as wholes. Our deposits have not been exhausted. In fact, part of our deposits have not still been discovered. Still being discovered. Still being discovered. From our wildlife to the rainforest to once you say resource to human beings in Africa, you understand why honestly it doesn't matter which power is rising. It knows it must have alliance. China's new friendship with Africa is based on this. And America's friendship with, look, I hope you and I pray what I want to say, I must first put forward to not, I don't want it to come at you like a racist remark, right? And I hope it doesn't sound like a racist remark. But there's a reality that we are Africans. Well, people don't like us, right? And people don't have to like us. So when you see them like us, you ask why. We have a history of not being liked. It's a history of... This continent has been purloined for thousands of years. I mean, like when the slave trade, from the European slave trade, going back to the slave trade before it, that's the Arab slave trade. This discovery made at Libya as if they're just discovering something. Is this new? Libya, before Europeans started trading with slaves, the Arabs enjoyed close to 1,000, how many, six sub-Saharan, if the whole thing was 800 years, they took the major part of slave trade. Europeans were new. The European slave trade is nothing compared to the Arab slave trade, statistics-wise. It's a fact, you can check it. That is long before the Europeans came. the Arabs were collecting slaves from all over Africa as if there was no tomorrow for sugarcane farm. So even this Dubai that they are talking of and all these places and all these arrangements, it's not only America that Africans built. They built everywhere. They've been collecting since. That one is just collection from the fridge called human resource. I'm saying the whole world has been collecting from this fridge. From after human resource, they now look and say, okay, we are no longer using human beings. We are tired. We will use machine. I think you need fuel. Here we are again. There's been really no resource that the whole world has been looking for that they don't know. Okay, it's in the fridge called Africa. You know, sometimes we should be empathic about when we speak about the African situation. The African situation didn't just emerge. It was developed. We are facing in our generation a result, what is called a desolation. It's something that has happened so many times that we are surrounded by a culture, an invisible culture of backwardness. And you would think that backwardness is just we don't want to develop. We don't want to develop. No, that's not how it works. That backwardness, can I speak on along these lines? That backwardness is actually more connected with not having hope. Not having hope. A people that consistently, do you know what it means to? Let's take several civilizations. The icon of every civilization is a hallmark. A hallmark product, a hallmark thing is that civilization. For example, Egypt will build their pyramids, even though it was Africa, it was a long time ago. These other people will do this. So there will be the hanging gardens of Babylon. There will be the Colosseum, wherever it is. So when you see that hallmark, what that civilization is saying is, look at our achievements, look at our feats, look at what we were able to create. Does that make sense to you? Now, once that civilization, right, has created that hallmark or that feat, what now happens is that the people who are there can look up to something. That's why it's important that it's high. All through those that studied anthropology and those that are students of history will see that every civilization has that mark. What's the reason for that mark? To help the people look up. Look up. That looking up is hope. And this hope I'm talking is not necessarily hope from a religion. It's just hope for a people. Something that makes them remember the legacy of their tradition of winning and inspires the next generation to look forward and win. Now, you see that important bridge between the past and the past, present, and future is what causes people to always look forward because of something that has happened. That's why you don't understand, from an African standpoint, why people will put so much money to go to the moon. What are they going to do for? If that money now they break it down and share it into, alleviation program, you will see how far that money will go. No, that's a pinnacle project. What they've created there is an icon, a hallmark. With that going to the moon, the next generation knows they have to go to Mars. And this thing will not stop until they put something into that Jupiter. They will not stop because each generation is telling the next one, move on. Now, when you have a terrain, a place, this is called the African context. When you have a place that successively has been, for some reason or the other, so impoverished, so, does this make sense? I hope this is coming across to you. This is not giving an excuse for failure, but this is giving a context so that we always know what we practice or what we teach. We know the context is working in. Because this thing happening in Africa, happening in Nigeria, is not happening just because some people didn't go to Harvard or some people went. What's happening here is that it's an environment that is void of hope. So when that happened through the next generation, through the next generation, through the next generation, by the time you came up, all you had to look at in your village was some buildings. No hallmark. There's nothing you remember your grandfather for. He did not invent anything that you know of. And his grandfather before him, he was a great warrior. They used to fight. They won their battles. They were great conquerors. No record of any discoveries. No mark of what they made. Do you understand where I'm going to with this? Now, because of these pictures, the next generation doesn't have what to believe in. It is that absence of hope that slows down